All Hello, we are here again for another Facebook Live with Angela Crowley. Today, we're really excited about the idea of how this course can really transform your practice. And I want to tell some stories from how it changed my practice because it seems like a really big promise, and I want us to kind of show that it's not as big a promise as it sounds when we're like transform your practice. That that it actually does really work.
Thank you.
Angela, you talk a lot about how this changes everything. Do you have ideas about how you of course you do, but neuroplasticity and how it changes the way we practice rather than just teaching movement? What are we doing? How are we talking to folks?
We're talking to a deeper level of them than their musculoskeletal organization. So their musculoskeletal organization has evolved throughout their lives through years and years of what we like to talk about as mapping that creates the patterns they walk in the door with.
Mhm.
And so working from this perspective allows us to dive more deeper into the source of the pattern instead of fighting the pattern.
I love that. And that brings me to my first story in a brilliant way is that we did our last Facebook Live and we talked about the pillars of neuroplasticity. And you mentioned the environment, attention, learning, novelty, and then reward. And I was very excited. We had this great conversation and I went right upstairs to teach. And I had this amazing session with my client. And she had a very traumatic accident, a fusion of her thoracic spine, and she lost the ability to walk, and she's walking again, but she's doing all of this strength training and she's doing all of this work. She was a dancer and a choreographer, and so she has the discipline and she's getting back to it. And she came in and she said, well, I was just at the gym, I did this many squats, this many this, and she talked to
Oh,
me about all
gosh.
these strengthening exercises.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, great. And then I watched her walk and I'm like, wow, she has all of this strength, but when she walks, her body isn't using it. She was using a cane and her body just wasn't using it. And so, of course, top of mind was these pillars. And so I changed the environment. Instead of talking about walking and being vertical in gravity, we went to a quadruped position on the reformer. And then I took her attention to her big toe. And I mean, this was all in the moment, but it was so profound. And I think it was because we just talked about this. And then in this quadruped position on the reformer, that her foot was on the bar and she was pushing with her big toe, part of her attention was that she was really working hard not to fall on her nose. That kind of thing, like that balance. It's amazing what the brain will do to protect us.
Mhm.
And it was a new position because she was pushing with her big toe. And it was super exciting because as she finally did it, all of a sudden her ankle, instead of barely moving, just started pumping and really pushing. And it was so exciting. And she jumped up, which brings us to the reward. And I have to say, we both had tears in our eyes.
Yeah.
It was so
Yeah.
exciting. And it was just very much an example where I had this conversation with you, which was a review, because I've taken this course twice, and went up and had this amazing session. And it was so exciting. And I just want sometimes, because I said to her, she's like, wow, what happened? And I'm like, I'll be able to tell you next time. I don't completely know, because that's working with the nervous system. It's not so cognitive. You can't trace it linearly.
Well, first of all, your choice to go to quadruped was brilliant because the force of gravity is extremely challenging for us. And especially if we've had trouble walking for any period of time. You know, we're walking on these two little feet, right? And it's a lot to manage she's got a whole new organization in her trunk, etc. By going to quadruped, not only did you change the environment, but you freed her from being just on those two little feet. And you did something else that's really important, which is you took her backwards in developmental movement, which is resourcing a deeper part of our brain where there's knowledge before we're able to even necessarily speak.
Mhm.
So there's like you don't tell a child how to crawl, right? They figure it out. So just by putting her in that position was brilliant.
Oh, yay. And that's the thing about this course is you are given the freedom to just try things. And so instead of
Yeah.
having a recipe of strength training exercises or strengthening exercises, you're like, okay, let's try this and let's try that. And it can be so much more collaborative and more fun.
Yeah, and it's all about experimenting, and that creates a much more open environment, both for you as the teacher and a lot more interest for the client too. It makes them a participant in their process.
Yes, that is exactly it.
I also love that you brought her attention to her big toe because as she's managing gravity and trying so hard to walk, she is probably not sensing very much detail, would be my suspicion,
Yeah.
without having seen anything. And it's like to sense her big toe, you took her all the way inside. So you did all the pieces. You changed the environment, right? Then you brought her attention. She had to be attentive because you put her in a little bit of a new, so you created novelty, a new environment with a little bit of instability. So she was called upon to pay attention. And then it sounds like she felt the success of it.
They did. That brings us to my next example, and this is really related to, for anyone that's watching, on neuroplasticity in action. You can sign up to download a PDF that has an example of a neuroplasticity strategy that I was so lucky to edit this PDF because now I get to use it all the time. And it's the idea of that we're exaggerating a pattern to assist the brain rather than trying to fight with the brain, is how I think of it. And the person that this person is a good friend of mine. He's a construction worker that started taking dance lessons when he was going to get married, and now he's about to do a Vienna waltz competition, which the whole thing I love every minute of this. And so
Yeah.
he's the person that I see when something hurts. He disappears when he's off and feeling good, but when something hurts or if he has a specific grapple or goal. And so he came back to me and he said, he walked up to the wall and he's like, my dance teacher says that I need to be able to put my head and my ribs against the wall at the same time, and I just don't even know how to do that. Which I said, well, I don't know that you ever need to do that, but okay, that's a goal. Let's try this. And so he has seen me a lot, and he's somebody, you know, those people that disappear and they come back and they're like, I've been doing this thing you told me to do 5 years ago. And I'm like, oh, I don't tell people to do that anymore, but that's okay. Life learns. And so what he was doing was laying on the foam roller and stretching his chest, and he was stretching his chest and stretching his chest, and nothing was happening. Nothing was changing. And so I said, well, I have a new trick. And I had him lie on his back and I put pillows under his head and under his two shoulders and said, okay, just lay there, and then made him do tons of lower body supine leg work. Like we got the magic circle out and just did anything and everything to take his nervous system away from his shoulders. And I focused on his breath and I just said, okay, exhale. And we did a set of stuff, partially because he really wants to feel like he's working out too. So you have to play that game a little bit. But then we took a layer of the pillows out and we did the same set again. And then we had him lie flat and do the same set again. And then I said, okay, stand up, stand against the wall. And for that moment, because of some other habits, it wasn't going to stay that way. But in that moment, he was able to put his rib cage and his head against the wall without really doing anything with his upper body in workout form. And he was very excited by that. And then has been coming back, getting ready for his competition. But
yeah, sometimes it seems like we're going in the opposite direction of the goal, right? But what we're going with is what the body's already doing. So when you have a tight muscle, those fibers are like they're so tightly knotted together. How I envision it is like they're in a knot,
Mhm,
and if I try and pull them apart and make the knot tighter.
mhm.
I also send information to the brain because it's hard for them to do. I send them information that this is hard, and I send the information that it's about discomfort, right? Whereas what you did by putting those pads under the shoulders supported what he was already doing in his chest so it could finally start to let go.
Mhm.
And that's what we always want to do. We want to go with, we want to trust the brilliance of their nervous system and go with it. So by putting the pads there, he got his body got to go, especially lying down, right? I can let go of these muscles. And then you said that you focused on his breathing, which is going to further soften his rib cage
Mhm.
so that I'm wondering, as you took the pads out, did his shoulders just naturally kind of relax onto the
They did.
reformer?
They were just naturally getting a little bit easier each time. Yeah.
Nice. And
The
you
way
turned
Yeah. One thing that I say to clients, because I use this trick a lot, it works really well, is I say, your brain is saying, finally, you're finally listening to me. We're finally working
yeah, it's
together.
like, thank you.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
yes, yes, yes.
Right. That it also brings me to this idea that we're working with the brain instead of against it. We're not trying to fix anything anymore. And this is just in the first part of one session, I had this woman come to me, and she I will say had some cynicism. She had been to lots of people, and everybody was really good at telling her what was wrong with her body, and she was ready for me to do that, in that she preemptively said, "Oh, okay, here's where you tell me everything that's wrong with me." And I said, "Well,
Oh, how sad.
no, this is where we're going to explore exactly how brilliant your body is at adjusting to your
Good
challenges."
job.
And she just paused and she looked at me a little bit like I was crazy. But she comes twice a week and is so focused on helping herself instead of fixing things. And that paradigm shift is one of the simplest but biggest things that this course gives you, is that the brain is brilliant, and every choice it makes, there's a reason for it.
Right, right. Everything that was in her pattern that she thought was wrong was there for good reason. And who are any of us as practitioners to judge that
Mhm,
when her brain has been so smart to figure out to make all those adjustments so that she can function.
mhm,
And so unfortunately, some of those adjustments probably no longer needed, like whatever her pattern was, probably some of it's habitual, right? It's maybe been going on for good reason, but from reasons a long time ago. But because we're paying attention to the other things we have to do in life, um, we're no longer sensing that, for example, if somebody had a sprained ankle and they limped for a long time, even after the ankle's rehab, sometimes the limp keeps going, and it's unconscious. And so then they end up with in a studio and someone's saying, well, this is wrong with your gait, that's wrong with it. And and they're doing their very, very best. And that pattern came there for good reason. And we don't have to know all the reasons. We don't have to figure them out at all. It's actually really simple. All we have to do is support what their body has chosen to do and go in that direction first with great respect and without judgment. And that alone sometimes
mhm.
is such a relief for people to have that change of approach.
Yes, absolutely. And it is another way in which it becomes more of a collaboration, which is so much more fun and more interesting as a practice. I mean, it's great for the clients, but it makes so much more joy to be the practitioner.
I love hearing these stories because it's one thing to talk about this work theoretically, and it sounds really cool. And like you said, the promises are big,
Mhm.
but when you tell me these stories and I see how easily you applied them and got results, it just makes me so happy.
Yeah, it is that like it seems magical because it is that easy. And it's
Right.
one of
That's
the
a
things
really
that,
good way to put it.
yeah, I love about this course is that often continuing ed courses are simply teaching you new movement or new equipment or new something. And this course is giving you an avenue to make all the things you already know that are so powerful even deeper and even more powerful. And it revitalizes the exercises or the movements I already know instead of me having to learn and master something different. That's very exciting. My um last story about an individual, and then I want to talk about classes a little bit, is about pain relief and um observing someone. Lots of pain in her knee and lots of fear around pain in her knee. And there was a session where she, every time in an open chain, every time she lifted her foot away from the ground, she would wince in pain. And halfway through the session, I realized that she started wincing before her foot actually moved, like
Anticipation, yeah.
anticipation. And so we changed the task, which is something that I learned from you, is that I had her sitting and I said, instead of saying, lift your foot, straighten your knee to lift your foot, I put a towel under her thigh and I said, press into this towel. And I even said, don't lift your foot, press into this towel, just press into this towel. And then I added, okay, press into this towel and reach through your heel. Don't lift your foot, press into the towel and reach through your heel. And she was focusing on that and her foot popped up in the air. And she was so excited because it didn't hurt for her to lift her foot, and she didn't jump up because she has a long way to go with her knee, but the excitement was there. And so changing the task to change the pathway of pain is how
Yeah,
I think of it, but I'm sure you can say it differently.
I love the way you said that.
Yeah.
And it's true, changing the task. So there's usually a association with what creates the pain, right? When in this case, lifting her knee. So you had her, so why would we do that? Why would we? It's like keep making it harder for her, right? So you gave her a new option, and that was, and you turned her attention to something else. And I bet that was a great surprise for her to see her foot lift up.
Yeah. It's very exciting. And it's funny, as we're talking about this, I'm like, it is just so simple, but it's a lot to learn to make it that simple. I also wanted to talk about classes. A lot of us teach group classes,
For sure.
and
Yeah.
the challenge of teaching a group class with many levels in the class, and one person's going too fast and one person's going too slow and one person's not straightening their legs and one person's straightening their legs so fast. And how do you cue 4 different people who are doing 4 different things in a class setting? And one of the things I learned from you in the way you led the labs, because this is a very experiential course, is simply asking people to sense things and finding sensations and using tempo and using what they sense to cue 2 different
And
patterns.
let them each have their own experience. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you can guide them all, and each is having a completely unique experience.
Mhm.
And then so you can let them choose too, like, okay, put your feet on the foot bar, and you might get 8 different variations of what that looks like. And now notice which part of your foot that you put on the foot bar, and go ahead and push back and forth, just like, right? And note, and then you start to bring their attention internally into what that feels like, so that you've got them already. You've got the whole group going inside themselves. And then you can create lots of different, diversity was another thing we talked about. You can give enough diverse options that you'll touch upon the needs pretty much. You'll touch upon the variations of each of them, providing new options for each of them too. So I think it's really important that you brought up the group setting.
Mhm.
And in this course, I'll be teaching a group. So it will be a lot of people with one set of instructions and completely individualized experiences.
Mhm.
So people will get to experience what that's like.
Yeah.
It's a little different style, right? Of what you choose to say. It's a little bit less directive
Mhm.
and
Exactly.
more inquiring.
Mhm. And I love that, like just like asking questions rather than like the scripts that we can all say
We've
ad
all said too
nauseam.
many times. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
push your heels into the bar, engage your hamstrings, all of that can go away. Like we don't have to spend time on that. We can get that
And
action.
like you said, it is experimental, so you never really know what you're going to get.
Mhm.
But that leads you to the next step once you see what you get, and it leads them to the next step. They may not have realized what a certain pattern feels like until you guide them through it. And so then they gain information too. And so again, it's collaborative, even amidst a group.
Yes, absolutely. It's fascinating and wonderfully exciting. And there's so much to learn, but so much to access to.
I
Uh,
love this conversation because it's really important to me that this course creates tangible, easy to use options that makes your job easier and more rewarding both.
yeah, it's great. Um, those are all of my stories. Well, I'm sure we can have more to say, but I just want to say, in case anybody needs to sign off, that the course is October 21st and 28th from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time, and it's all online. So from the privacy of your own home, you don't have to travel or pay for a hotel or anything like that. You can take it online. Um, if you want more updates about the course as it goes, go to neuroplasticityin.action.com. You can download the PDF that talks about what I did with my client Mike, who's off to be waltzing. And there is also an early bird deadline coming up where you can save a few bucks if you register by August 20th. So those are all the details. Did I get all the details? That's the hardest part, is making sure everybody gets all of the information.
And people will have access to the material. Yes.
Mhm. Yes. And
Following.
recordings, like the recording,
Yes.
yes, yep.
Yes.
So if
Yes.
if for instance, because some people are asking us, I can come on this day but not the second day or what have you, you can't. I mean, it is an experiential course, so if you can come to both days, that's certainly ideal, but we all are adults with lives, so there will be recordings that you can watch on your own time if that is necessary.
I think that's really important, especially since we've spread it apart for this first course.
Yeah.
I like that we've spread it apart because it gives people a chance to process and experiment with what they learned in the first day, come
Mhm.
back to us with questions that we will address, and then move on from there. So it kind of allows people to have this absorption time, which I think is incredibly valuable. And I do recognize that it's a challenge. We've had some people say, I'm in one country one day and another country the other course day. And yes, you can still participate.
Yes.
So that's great. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
True.
I really love hearing about the experiences that you're having with the material.
Oh,
It
it's
inspires me
just
more.
yes, yay, it's just so wonderful. We do have another Facebook Live coming up on August 17th. I believe it's at 10 a.m., but I will put in the comments for sure. And on August 17th, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Feldenkrais method, which is one of the tools that Angela is going to be using to help us understand neuroplasticity through movement. And
Yes. Yes, we're going to talk about the relationship between the two, and I'm looking forward to it already.
great, yay, good. All right. Well,
Thanks so much, everyone.
no
Thanks for
problem.
joining us.
Yes, and if there are any other questions, you can always email us at info@neuroplasticityin.action.com. And we will put all of that information in the comments.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.